Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om Dhyayamo Dhavalavagunthanavatim Tejomayim Naishthekim Snigdhapangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmitashremukhim Vatsalyamritavarshinim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapinim Shyamangim Madhusikta Suktim Amrita Anandatmikam Ishwarim Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. We'll continue with our discussion on Bhaja Govindam. So far, we have discussed the 22 verses in Bhaja Govindam. As we do it every time, let's quickly go over each of the verse, just discussing the gist of each of the verse so that we remind ourselves of the topics that we have discussed, also to get the context of today's verse, to get the feel of the sequence. So the first verse was about the unnecessary technicalities of life that we define, making life complicated. Try to go beyond that, develop devotion and surrender. Second one was about the tendency to accumulate wealth, rather overcome that greed. Third one was about unnecessary obsession about the physical appearance. Try to go beyond that. Fourth one was about understanding nature of life, how life is unpredictable, and try to be prepared for that. Fifth one was about as long as we have abilities, as long as we have wealth, we'll have following. Once that depletes, the amount of following that we may have would also deplete. Sixth one, as long as this body has life, people would consider us. Once that goes, it's natural that people will start forgetting us. The seventh verse was about our obsessions in various stages of life. We are obsessed about one thing after the other. We tend to forget to focus on what is the most important thing in life, to focus on the permanent, eternal concept, the supreme concept. Rather than that, we waste our time in being obsessed with various things in various stages of life. The eighth one was about finally raising the question, who am I? Considering the relationships, considering all that I hold, I own, who I actually am. How do I define myself? Irrespective of what I have, what I don't have. The ninth verse was about now we are setting on to leading a meaningful life. Where do we begin? We begin with right company. Good company helps us overcome attachment. That helps us dispel delusion. And that would lead us to the path of liberation. And then the 10th verse was about how various things that we hold significant in different stages of life, eventually they don't remain significant, which we realize much later. So why not understand that as we deal with things in this very moment? The 11th verse was about we understand nothing remains significant, nothing remains permanent, then why build pride based on all these impermanent things around us? Makes no sense. The 12th verse was about how life throws at us experiences that are dual in nature. The more we try to remain in the center rather than getting pulled away by the dual experiences, more stable we would be in life, more stable we would be emotionally. 13th verse again stresses on the importance of good company, especially the company of the Sadguru, which is the one that finally takes us across the ocean of life. transmigration. The 14th verse was about growing spiritually. Growing spiritually is not what we show outwardly. Rather, the change has to happen within, and then that organically transforms into the outward change. 15th and 16th verses were about desires, how we lose our abilities, we lose our wealth, we lose people. In spite of losing things, one thing we don't let go of is our hold on our desires. A reminder for us, the 15th and 16th verse. The 17th verse was about austerities and rituals, how they are significant in initial stages of our spiritual growth, but eventually we have to outgrow them. We have to go beyond and try to stick on to the essence that they stand for, rather than just literal rituals and austerities. The 18th verse was about developing dispassion, how once we have dispassion, any kind of experience that we have in life, we would ever be happy. And that's what great saints and sages, Mahatmas, have exemplified. The 19th verse is about whatever kind of condition we are in, whatever situation that we face, if we have our mind focused on the Supreme, we would ever be able to overcome any situation, ever remain happy. The 20th verse was about imbibing. Even if we imbibe a little bit of what the Bhagavad Gita teaches, imbibe the purity that the river Ganga stands for, if we are able to develop devotion towards the divine, even a little bit of that will take us a long way, will take us a long distance. That was what the 20th verse was. 21st verse was how we are stuck in the vicious cycle of birth and death. Again and again, we have to come and lay in the mother's womb. As long as we hold on to our attachments and desires, that is going to keep happening. So we need to think of going beyond that circle. The 22nd verse that we discussed last week was about understanding who a true yogi is, one who takes the least and gives the most. And such people, their conduct, their whole existence is quite difficult to comprehend. That's why they are often misunderstood to be like children or madmen, who don't fit into the usual framework that we build about society and civilization, civilized way of doing things. So these were the verses that we have discussed so far. Today's verse, 23rd verse, is kind of a recap of few of these topics that we just went over. And I think it's worth going over them again. Probably it was on purpose. The topic was brought back. Again, here the question is about who am I? Or how do I understand myself? What do I consider myself to be? So the 23rd verse goes as Kastvam koham kutah ayatah kame janani kome tatah iti paribhavaya sarvamasaram vishvam tyaktva swapna vicharam. So as always, let's go over the pronunciation first, then the word by word meaning, and let's discuss on the verse thereafter. So please respond twice after me. The first word is kastvam. It is actually kah and tvam. Kah, tvam together would become kastvam. So please respond after me. Kastvam. 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 The next word is kah, aham. Together would become koham. Please respond twice. Koham. Koham. Kastvam. Koham. Kutah. 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 Ayatah. 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 Kastvam. Koham. Kutah ayatah is the first line. The second one, Ka me janani. So word by word, ka, ka, ka. It is a with a bar over it, so it is ka. Had it been without a bar, it would be ka. Because it's with a bar, it is ka, the longer one. Me, me, me. Janani, I with a bar over it, so long. Janani, janani, janani. The next word is kah. It is kah me because of the following term. Me, kah will become ko as per the Sanskrit rule, the grammatical rule. So it is ko me, ko me, ko me. Tata, tata, tata. Ka me janani, ko me tata. Iti, iti, iti. Paribhavaya, BH, bha. And BHA with a bar, so it is bha. Paribhavaya. Please respond twice. Paribhavaya. Paribhavaya. Sarvam, sarvam, sarvam. Asaram, asaram, asaram. Iti paribhavaya sarvam asaram. Third line. Fourth one, Vishwam, S with the mark on the top. So just flat tongue, sh. Vishwam, Vishwam, Vishwam. Tyaktva, lot of half letters. Ty, tya. Kt, kta, kta. Tyaktva. And then Va, KTVA. Tyaktva, tyaktva, tyaktva. Vishwam tyaktva. Swapna, swapna, swapna. Vicharam, vicharam, vicharam. Vishwam tyaktva swapna vicharam. This is the fourth line. So the 23rd verse is Kastvam koham kutah ayatah kame janani ko me tatah iti paribhavaya sarvamasaram vishwam tyaktva swapna vicharam. So let's look into the meaning word by word. Kas tvam, kah tvam, kah who, tvam you, who are you? Kas tvam, kah aham, koham is kah aham, kah who, aham me, who are you, who am I? Kutah, from where? Ayatah, have I come? So who are you, who am I? From where have I come? Profound questions that are put forth. Ka, who? Me, my, janani, who is my mother? Kah, ko is kah. Who? Me. Kah, me will become ko, me. Who is mine? Who is my tata, father? So who is my mother? Who is my father? Who are you? Who am I? Where am I? Where have I come from? Again, all these are very profound, deep questions that we need to ask our own selves at times. Iti, likewise, paribhavaya, reflect, to contemplate on. Iti paribhavaya, sarvam asaram. Sarvam, everything asaram. So everything that we see, deal with, asaram. They are sans essence. They don't have an essence. They don't have substance in them. Vishwam, what? Vishwam, the creation. So, in case you remember us discussing about the table and the second row of the table, which refers to, which conveys referring to something. So here, and most typically the word in this the word when in the second row of the table, it would end with So here there are three terms that end with the sound Sarvamasaram, Vishwam, Swapna Vicharam. All of them are ending with a So all three of them are from the second row. So all three of them are related to each other, adjective or whatever kind of relationship they have. So what are they? Vishwam, the world. Sarvam asaram, that which is substanceless, that which is essenceless. Swapna vicharam, that which comes out of thoughts that are dream-like, thoughts that are like dream. So the world that we see around is nothing but our own thoughts, like we are in a dream. They have no essence. Tyaktva, let go of it. Relinquishing it. Relinquishing it, what should we do? Paribhavaya. Contemplate, reflect on what we truly are, the questions that were put forth in the first two lines. So understand the whole creation is like a dream, and try to contemplate or reflect upon these questions. Who am I? Who are you? Where did I come from? Who's my father? Who's my mother? What are my belongings? What I truly am? How do I define myself? So to summarize the points, the verse is urging us to contemplate on the profound questions like who am I? What are the things I own? What are the things I am related to? What exactly all this is? How do I define myself with respect to all these? And to reflect on the permanent. Who I truly am is the permanent supreme. Reflect on that, going beyond this ephemeral creation, things that are around us which are basically substanceless. They are like we are in a dream, and try to go beyond that. So as I had mentioned, the three main things here is the question about who I am, 2 about dream, and 3 about the very ultimate point that we need to focus on, the permanent supreme truth, are the three things, main things in this verse. And we have come across this topic a few number of times in the previous verses. So the teachings definitely are repetitive, as we have seen in other texts too, like Lalita Sahasranama or Bhagavad Gita. I remember even Amma's satsangs, the points that Amma says are often repeating in nature. Amma, iterative in nature. Amma would repeat it again and again. We would hear Amma say the same thing again and again. And sometimes we may feel, I'm so bored of these points. And I once asked Amma, aren't you bored? No, listening to it, maybe we may feel bored. Technically, we shouldn't. If we do, we have a lot to work on. But then one who keeps telling it shouldn't be all the more bored. So I asked Amma once, aren't you bored of just repeating the same thing again and again and again and again? And Amma said, what can I do? I want my children to listen and understand. They don't, so I have to repeat. I have no other choice. I have to repeat so that it somehow gets into their head, gets into your head. And she also mentioned, like when we learn for an exam. When we learn for an exam, we keep repeating something again and again, again and again to memorize it, or more or less try to just get used to it. We repeat it again and again. Similarly, these points as part of satsang have to be repeated again and again so that they get ingrained, or at least to some extent get into our head. So we need to keep repeating and again so that it becomes our nature. That's the whole point, I guess, why all these texts sometimes repeat certain points again and again. Else we just deal with it that day and we are done with it, we forget. Now if we suddenly ask someone, so okay, what did we discuss in the 10th verse? it could be quite difficult to remember about it, because it's just verily our nature. We discuss something and we forget about it. Unless and until it comes repeating again and again in a repeated way, that's when I think it gets into our head all the more. So I guess it is for that very reason. We may have understood the various topics that we have discussed, but just understanding that is not good enough unless and until we imbibe them and put them into practice. We don't really get a feel of them. So the most important point is step one is to understand what these texts teach us, what Amma's teachings teach us. That isn't enough. That is just step one. And the step two, which is more equally important, is to imbibe them, translate them into our actions, into our words, into our thoughts. Only then it makes sense. It's like someone learning a theory in physics in high school. For that, we may have to keep learning. The first law of Newton says this, second law of Newton says this, and we keep repeating it again and again in our mind so that we learn what the theory is or what the law is. But a physicist or someone who's doing PhD in physics, they may have put that into action. They may have applied that in real life so as to do their research. For them, they don't need to keep repeating it, because it becomes, they have imbibed it, they understand it, they get a grasp of it because they have implemented it or they have put it into action. So once we put it into action, we don't need these repetition. So that's probably the reason Amma said she keeps repeating again and again and again and again. So here in this verse, the verse is reminding us to ask the same question again. I think at least it is for the third time that we are coming across this question. Who am I? Try to understand who I truly am. Who's my father? Who's my mother? Basically, pointing out to all the bonds, all the relationships that we have. I belong to something. I own something. I'm related to someone. All these things. Basically, when we say, who am I? That's how we introduce ourselves, right? X and X and X, Y, Z. Yeah, I'm her son, or I'm his son, or I'm his daughter. Or do you know this particular company? Yes, I work there. I'm the manager there, or I'm the CEO of this company. Or do you know this spiritual master? I am her disciple. Or do you know this particular city? I live there. Or do you know this particular house on that street, which is beautiful? I own that. Or do you know BMW? Yes, I own that. I own a car from that company. Or do you know this particular company? I own their product, right? We always define ourselves with respect to all these different things. And the verse is trying to say, as long as we keep doing that, it's like we are living in a dream. None of these make any sense because they're going to disappear in no time. So talking about dream, we come across this in various spiritual discussions. Oh, this is just a dream. This is just meaningless. This is this is unreal. Nothing is real, etc. So I thought we'll just try to understand or at least discuss a little bit about it. Before that, I have just 3 passages from Awakened Children, Volume 1 and Volume 2. First, we'll read that, see what Amma says, and then elaborate on that. So first, Awakened Children, Volume 1, page 244. Maybe full screen I can do it in tono, because the words are small, the font is small. Awakened Children, Volume 1, page 244. Worldly relationships are like the relationships at a bus stop. All will get off at some stop or the other. You alone will remain. Therefore, what Mother says is to search for the truth without getting engrossed in dreams, which goes in line with what this verse is trying to teach us. The second passage, Awakened Children, Volume 1, page 291. Therefore, children, don't be deluded by the dreams which you see externally. They are all things and people who have to go when time comes. Then what remains will only be sorrow, won't it? Therefore, despair will not arise if you live understanding this beforehand. Without getting tempted by all this, remember God, Live with the attitude of surrender to Him. God alone is eternal truth. It should be understood that the world is not eternal. This is discriminating between eternal and non-eternal. To understand what is eternal and non-eternal. Again, in line with what this verse is trying to convey. The next one, Awakened Children, Volume 2, page 221. Page 220. Whatever is seen is the projection of mind. Suppose you have a dream in which you see that you are fighting with another person in middle of the road. It is daytime and therefore many people assemble to see the fight on both the sides of the street. Some reproach it while others encourage it, and some try to stop the fighting. As your opponent is stronger than you receive a lot of beatings and kicks and blows. Finally, the police come and arrest both of you. You are placed behind bars for 3 days. When you come out, you are full of shame, hatred, and revenge. You cannot contain it. Just at the same time, you wake up from the dream. So all this while, we are dreaming about it, right? That's what Amma says. So when we wake up from the dream, you become very restless. You think, what a disgrace! How can I possibly face my friends and others? Should not have fought with that man. I could hardly return a single blow. Thinking in this way, your mental agitation increases. Somehow, you want to get out of this situation. Therefore, you sit down and slowly contemplate everything and slowly realize that the fight, the road, the opponent, the policeman, the jail, the people, the shame, the hatred, the revenge, all of it was nothing but creation of your own mind. Similarly, all that we see and experience in this world is a long dream. It is nothing but the jugglery of mind. When we awaken into the state of God realization, we will come to know this fact through direct experience. Some was giving the example of a dream, how we see or experience things in our dream, but when the moment we wake up and contemplate on it, we'll realize none of them were true. And then why bother about it is the question that would come within. Similarly, when we reach the ultimate state of perfection, state of realization, the same thing happens. All the experiences that we have in this life, in this creation, in this world, all of them seem meaningless, or all of them seem unreal to bother about. So to gather the points that these three passages Amma is trying to convey to us through these three passages, the points, the 3 points to gather. One, it would be completely wrong to say that dreams and this world is unreal, because we can feel it, we can experience it, we are living in midst of it. How can we call it unreal? The whole point of calling it unreal, you say, who's my father, who's my mother, is the question that we are trying to ask. And we tell, oh, my father is unreal, my mother is unreal. Again, it doesn't make sense. I was born because of my father and my mother. And I can see them, I can feel them, I have spoken with them probably. How can they be unreal? So when we say unreal, as Amma points out in these passages, when you say unreal, all we mean by unreal is not that they don't exist. Rather, unreal means they are impermanent in nature. They are not eternal. They won't be forever. They come and they leave at some point of time. So people that we relate to, things that we own, things that we are in, things that we bond with, all of them have an expiry date. They have to cease to exist at some point of time. So two, if we consider them permanent, if we get entangled with them, what is it? It is the play of our mind. That is what we need to realize. So make sure we are prepared for the impermanent nature of things that we are going to deal with. The better we are prepared, better we are poised in life. Like in the second passage, Amma says, despair will not arise if you live understanding this beforehand. try to understand that everything that we are going to deal with in this creation, be it the father, mother, brother, sister, house, car, spouse, whatever, all of them are impermanent in nature. Just deal with them. None of the scriptures, neither Amma says, don't deal with them. Just relinquish them, give them up. That's not what Amma says. Amma says, deal with them, but deal with them with the understanding that they are impermanent. That's all. By unreal, that's all what we mean. By Maya, that's all what we mean. And I have mentioned this before. Amma refers to the impermanence or the Maya or this world as, Amma says, Maya ennal illattadalla allattadana in Malayalam. Maya doesn't mean that things don't exist. It only means that they are impermanent in nature. They may not exist in the future. Just that they are not permanent in nature. They are not eternal. That's all what we need to understand. So we have so many relationships defined with people, with things that we own, people that we bond with. They're all like dream. So what does it exactly mean when we say they are all like dream? We recognize ourselves based on these relationships, right? We say, I am a father with respect to my son or daughter. I am a son with respect to my father or my mother. I am the owner with respect to the phone I own, the car I own, the house I own, whatever else I own. I am the boss with respect to the job I have, or I am the spouse with respect to my partner. So all my recognitions, all my definition about myself is what? Is based on all these relationships, right? That's all. That's how we define ourselves. And we identify ourselves with these relationships. So what happens if the wife just disappears? What happens if the father disappears? What happens if the job is lost? What happens if the car gets totaled? Our definition now becomes incomplete, right? When it becomes incomplete, we get into a stage of confusion. And that is what leads us to sorrow. So as long as we don't define ourselves with respect to everything else, doesn't mean deny my wife. We should say, I am the husband of such and such person. I am the wife of such and such person. I am the son of such and such person. But my identification shouldn't be based on that. I shouldn't exist solely based on that. I exist irrespective of whether that exists or that gets recognized or not. That is the understanding we need to have when we live in this world. For example, say, our existence should not be based on how people recognize me or how people define me or with these external things. The example, like a celebrity, consider a celebrity. A celebrity is famous, right? Celebrity is celebrity. That's why we call them celebrity, because they are celebrated. I can think of 4 aspects with each of the celebrity. One, because, I would say, when we think about happiness with respect to the celebrity, there could be 4 aspects to it. One, happiness because they are famous. We can say, assign 25% to that. So 25% of their happiness is because they are famous. They have following. 25% of their happiness is because all the wealth that they have accumulated and all that they have at their disposal. Luxurious life. 25% of happiness could be because of that. Another 25% of happiness could be because of all the abilities they have. They are celebrity maybe because they are the person is a sportsman or probably a movie star or some form of artist or something or the other. So it's that talent or that ability that they have that gives them happiness. So we can aspect 25% to that. And then the last 25% is because who they are. Happiness just that is inborn, irrespective of all these. And it is typical of that. If you really think, even our happiness is based on all these different things. How people accept us or love us, the things that we have, the happiness that they give, things that we are able to do, the happiness that gives to us. So 25% wealth, 25% talent, 25% fame, and 25% who we truly are. Say a celebrity has all these four and is 100% happy. Say, hypothetically. Now this celebrity grows old. As the celebrity grows old, the person loses the talent or ability that he or she has. It depletes. So what happens? That 25% is gone. Now they are only 75% happy. Then, because their talent is gone, their following is also going to deplete along, right? People are not going to love you as much as they used to do. If you're not as good a sportsman, if you're not as good an actor anymore, so that 25% is also gone. Now you're only 50% happy. And now because you don't have talent, you're not famous, you're not going to get advertisements, you're not going to get sponsorship, you're not going to get endorsement. So the wealth also depletes. Now 75% is gone. You're only 25% happy. You're 25% happy because only who you are, the fourth aspect alone. So if I define my happiness with the other three things, the segments, my happiness is definitely going to deplete. Whereas a Mahatma like Amma, even Amma could be considered a celebrity. There are so many people who admire Amma, follow Amma, but Amma's happiness is 100% on the fourth aspect alone. Her happiness is based on who she is not dependent on what she has, is not dependent on who follows her, is not dependent on all the abilities she has. Her happiness is only because who she is. And because of which, older Amma grows, whatever happens, Amma is ever joyful and happy, or any Mahatma for that matter. They are always self-reliant. Because they are self-reliant, they are always happy. So in this case, what happens? Their definition about themselves, who am I? The who am I is I am I. I am the supreme truth, is the realization, is the level of realization they have gotten to. Who am I is not defined by what I own, what I have, what people think about me, none of them. The definition is only based on the fourth segment, who my own self is. And because their happiness is based on that, it is ever there. So the point is not to get rid of the positions we have, to get rid of the relationships that we have. Rather, deal with them with the understanding that they are impermanent in nature. Taking up a path of being a monk, the idea is to renounce all the possessions, relationships you have. But in spite of that, Amma makes it a point to tell us you should do your duty towards your parents. Never run away from that. Don't get bound by it. Don't get entangled in that relationship. But whenever required, you should go and help them. I remember my parents, as they've gotten old, Amma has always asked me to go and help them whenever possible, in such a way that you don't get entangled in that relationship, but never hesitate to help them. So Amma doesn't tell me, oh, forget about your dad, forget about your mom. They are non-existent. Amma teaches me, or what Amma has taught me is, they are there, but everything is impermanent. Try to understand that and then deal with them. So I have always thought about it, because we have come across these topics so many times, and we say, we talk about detachment, we talk about how everything is impermanent during satsangs, during scriptural discussion, etc. So I every now and then ask myself the question, how much have I imbibed it? Talking about it is one, and to actually practice it is something else. How much have I actually imbibed it? When I get to a situation, how would I face it? And I recently faced such a situation, because we're talking about relationship, etc. So it was the first time I'm experiencing a death of an immediate family member. So my biological mother passed away about a month ago, a little more than a month ago. And I had to unexpectedly go to India. Amma asked me to come, and I was in Amritapuri for a longer period of time. That's why the scriptural discussion had to be cancelled. It got discontinued because I had to leave overnight all of a sudden. So I couldn't take the camera and the usual things that I took the last time, so that I could do the scriptural discussion from India. Because of that, we couldn't do the discussion for, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, right? We had a discontinuity. So I had to go all of a sudden. So now was the time that I was thinking about how much have I actually imbibed the things that we have discussed. Definitely the death was unexpected. It was unrelated to the long-term ailment my biological mother was going through. So to honestly share with you, it was a sudden news. It was unexpected news, so to say. But for whatever reason, I wasn't sad about it, or I didn't cry about it at all. It didn't strike me in a way that kind of deflated me. I was as I was. Definitely, I should be honest. It created a void because Amma herself was telling me the bond between the child and the mother is very special in this world of all the bond that you have. And it is a bond that is defined, or it begins with the umbilical cord. I'm pronouncing it right? The umbilical cord. And that relation doesn't exist between anyone else. And that though physical, the umbilical cord, the significance is much more profound than just a physical string between the child and the mother. So Amma says Amma was telling me it creates a void when the mother goes. And I'm ever grateful to her for all that she has done for me, and most importantly for bringing me to Amma. The life that I have is what my mother took me to, or exposed me to, and then I took the decision of being a monk. So that was ever there. But like I told you, it never made me cry, it never made me sad per se. I didn't cry or I wasn't sad. Does that mean I don't love my mother? Definitely not. Like I told you, I'm ever grateful to her for all that she has done. And I definitely respect her, love her for all that she has done to me. So the bond or the relationship that I have with my mother, or I have had with my mother, it comes back to the point that we summarize from the passage that Amma shared in the Awakened Children. Can we go back to that slide? Just the summary points from the Awakened Children. The Awakened Children summary points. Two slides from there. Yeah. So, what did we gather from the Awakened Children passage? We don't have to deny any of these as unreal. My mother, I have experienced her for almost 40 years, and I cannot say she's unreal. She was there. I have experienced her. But by unreal, what we mean is impermanent nature of it. Impermanent nature, at some point of time, everything or everyone has to leave. 2, if I consider that as permanent, it is the jugglery of my mind. My mind is creating that feeling, which is where all the problems start with. The more you are prepared for the impermanent nature of people and things, the better you would fare in life. So, I guess, based on all these discussions, unless and until I really try to practice it, there is no point discussing all these in scriptural discussion. So I take no pride, or I don't consider it any achievement telling, oh, I didn't cry. That's no big deal. If you cry doesn't mean you are any inferior. If you feel like crying, you should cry. But my point is to underscore the point that we need to understand how things are impermanent in nature. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't love them because they're impermanent. As long as they are there, love them. Like Amma gives the example, like in the Awakened Children passage, Amma was telling things that we deal with, people that we deal with, it's like going on a journey in a bus, on a train. It's typical in India when you go on these long train rides. Sometimes you go from North India to South India, it would take 2 days. And you would have co-passengers, you make friends with them. We just become family for those 2 days. We share food, we share thoughts, and some people become so candid with each other. They share all their problems in life. There is advice going both the ways and all that. But all that happens with the understanding that after 2 days, he's going to go his way, I'm going to go my way. Or she's going to go her way, I'm going to go my way. We always do it with that understanding. But at the same time, we don't think or say that after 2 days, he's going to disappear. Why care about him? That's not how it is. We still enjoy with them. Similarly, be it my father, be it my mother, be it whoever else, always give the due respect, recognize them, do the best, do your dharma towards them. All that we own, all that we have, all those we share a relationship with. Do your dharma towards them. But with the understanding, all these that I'm dealing with is impermanent in nature. So, the point of being emotional, etc., that I was talking about, one other point I just made note of is, crying that my mother went away was going to be of no use to anyone, neither me nor my mother or anyone else. Rather, I thought, or I've always contemplated on the point that rather utilize that energy to at least pray for them. Rather than crying for them, pray for them. That will benefit me, that will benefit people around, and that will probably benefit the departed soul too. So, the more prepared we are, the better we would be able to react in a given situation. So, as Amma always says, the more we are prepared, we will act in a situation than react in a situation. To act is different, to react is different. To act is where I do things with awareness, I do things with prepared attitude. React is where I am unprepared and I just react. When I react, not everything may be under my control. So, the whole point here is to consider, who am I? The question, who am I? Who is my father? What are the things I own? Who is my mother? All of these definitions should be shouldn't be based out of my ego, my attachment towards them. Rather, I am who I am, irrespective of whether I am always grateful for whatever I have, but I am irrespective of either of these. Is the situation or the point that we need to get to. So, to consider, rather than doing away with relationship, rather we can consider relationship in a different way. Rather than identifying myself with respect to others, let me identify others with respect to myself. The 23rd verse, the 24th, 25 and 26, they are all related to each other. The next 2 verses, 24th and 25th, are what we are getting to. Not today, the next week. But rather than defining myself with respect to others, then it always gives me sorrow. Rather, let me define others with respect to myself. And the only way to define others with respect to myself is to feel or understand what I see in them is what is in me. And that's what Mahatmas like Amma stand for. Me and they are one and same. And we hear this again a lot. So we'll try to delve into that topic, or at least try to decode it a little bit on what does it mean that what is in me is in you. The divine in me is the divine in you. What does it mean? So let's discuss that during verses 24 and 25. So this particular verse, to summarize, it is trying to ask us to answer the questions like who am I, who are you, what are the relationships that I have, and try to focus on the permanent and try to get rid of or try to overcome the impermanent nature. Don't get entangled in impermanent things. Deal with everything, but always with the understanding they are all impermanent. If we deal with things with the understanding that they are impermanent, automatically our focus will be on what is permanent. So that would be the best way to answer these questions. Who am I? I am who I am, irrespective of what I have, who I have, or who I don't have, or what I don't have. I am because I am. That's the level we need to get to. So I hope what we discussed today made sense. Did it make sense to you?
No, I think you missed a major point, but I'll talk to you later.
What is that major point?
Well, I think when you ask the question, who am I, you find out you're not there, and there is no one. There is no person. There is no me. And that's the place of letting go of all interactions in the world. You're only the observer who has awareness and observe. You're not this identity or this person. And that's the reason to ask the question, who am I? Because it helps you come to that deeper space.
So, because she didn't speak on the mic, one of the residents here was talking about the question of who am I. To ask that question from the point of when I completely go beyond, could you just repeat what you mentioned so that I'll just repeat that on the mic?
When you go deeply into who am I,
When you go deeply into who am I,
you find there is no one there.
you find there is no one there.
There's no personality, no identity,
There's no personality, no identity,
no body,
no mind,
no thoughts.
no thoughts. So you were mentioning that we missed that point. That was missed intentionally because, again, we can talk about that concept. Are we able to get to that level? No. We are still bound by things and people around us. So we are trying to answer this very question with respect to the things and people that we are bound to. That we can always talk about. Go to the stage where nothing exists. Even I don't exist. But can we think of that stage yet? Probably not. We can talk about it. Have we experienced it? Probably not. Can we get there? Yes, we definitely can. So, because most of the people, because there are a lot of people attending this session, all at different levels, we are all, one thing that is common with all of us is we are bound with things and people. So with respect to that, how do we answer this question? That was the discussion about. That's why we did not discuss this high-level topic of that state where I don't exist, the identity doesn't exist, none of these exist. If you talk about it, it may just go over your head. So that's the reason why we are trying to discuss or address this question from the level of the bonds and the relationship that we have. With respect to that, try to understand things. This very question, try to answer that question so that we can get to that level. Doesn't mean what you said is irrelevant. It's very relevant. What you said is the stage that we need to get to. But at the level that we are in, at varied levels, because we are a few, probably 100 people, few hundred of us who attend this session, each one of us are at different levels. But one thing that could be common with all of us is we are still bound by things and people. So with respect to that, how can we answer this question? That was what the discussion was about. Does that make sense? Okay. So let us conclude the session or the discussion here. I think there are no specific questions. So we'll conclude this session here. We have about 5 to 6 minutes. So in case any one of you wants to leave, feel free to do so. We will chant the 23 verses that we have discussed till now. Last week we couldn't chant, so we'll rather do it today because we have some time. So it may take about 10 minutes. So we may go a few minutes past the 8:30 mark. So don't feel compelled to stay back. Feel free to leave if you would want to. Those who would want to stay back, please do so. We'll together chant the 23 verses now. Let's do it together. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte, Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrunya Karani. Mudhajahi dhanagamatrishnam kuru sadbuddhim manasi vitrishnam yallabhase nija karmopatam vittam tena vinodaya chittam. Naristana bhaira nabhidesham drishtva maga mohavesham etanmamsa vasadi vikaram manasi vichintaya varam varam. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam tadvajjivitam atishaya chapalam vidhi vyadhyabhimana krastam lokam shoka hatam cha samastam. Ya avat vittoparjana sakta tavan nija parivaro rakta paschajivati jarjara dehe varta kopina pritchati gehe. Yavat pavano nivasati dehe tavat pritchati kushalam gehe gatavati vayau deha paye bharya bibhyati tasmin kaye balastavad क्रीडासक्तः तरुणस्तावत् तरुणीसक्तः वृद्धस्तावत् चिन्तासक्तः परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः काते कान्ता कस्ते पुत्रः संसारोऽयम् अतीव विचित्रः कस्य त्वं कः कुत आयातः तत्त्वं चिन्तय तदिह भ्रातः. सत्सङ्गत्वे निस्सङ्गत्वं निस्सङ्गत्वे निर्मोहत्वं निर्मोहत्वे निश्चलतत्वं निश्चलतत्वे जीवन्मुक्ति वयसि गते कः कामविकारः शुष्के नीरे कः कासारः क्षीणे वित्ते कः परिवारः ज्ञाते तत्त्वे कः संसारः मा कुरु धनजन यौवनगर्वं हरति निमेषात् कालसर्वं मायामयमिदम् अखिलं हित्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा दिनयामिन्यौ सायं प्रातः शिशिरवसन्तौ पुनरायातः कालः क्रीडति गच्छत्यायुः तदपि न मुञ्चति आशावायुः काते कान्ता धनगतचिन्ता वातुलकिं तव नास्ति नियन्ता त्रिजगति सज्जन संगतिरेका भवति भवार्णव तरणे नौका जटिलो मुण्डी लुञ्चितकेशः काषायाम्बर बहुकृतवेषः पश्यन्नपि च न पश्यति मूढः उदरनिमित्तं बहुकृतवेषः अङ्गं गलितं पलितं मुण्डं दशनविहीनं जातं तुण्डं वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चति आशापिण्डम् अग्रे वह्निः पृष्ठे भानुः रात्रौ चुबुकसमर्पितजानुः करतलभिक्षस्तरुतलवासः तदपि न मुञ्चति आशापाशः कुरुते गङ्गा सागरगमनं व्रतपरिपालनम् अथवा दानं ज्ञानविहीनः सर्वमतेन भजति न मुक्तिं जन्मशतेन सुरमन्दिरतरुमूलनिवासः शय्याभूतलम् अजिनं वासः सर्वपरिग्रह भोगत्यागः कस्य सुखं न करोति विरागः योगरतो वा भोगरतो वा संगरतो वा संगविहीनः यस्य ब्रह्मणि रमते चित्तं नन्दति नन्दति नन्दत्येव भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदधीता गङ्गाजललव कणिका पीता सकृदपि येन मुरारिसमर्च क्रियते तस्य यमेन न चर्चा पुनरपि जननं पुनरपि मरणं पुनरपि जननी जठरे शयनम् इह संसारे बहुदुस्तारे कृपया पारे पाहि मुरारे रथ्याचर्पट विरचितकन्थः पुण्य विवर्जितपन्थः योगी योग नियोजितचित्तः रमते बालोन्मत्तवदेव कस्त्वं कोऽहं कुतः आयातः कामे जननी को मे तातः इति परिभावय सर्वमसारं विश्वं त्यक्त्वा स्वप्नविचारम्. One other point to your question, even this verse is not talking about the high level understanding. It is also trying to explain things with respect to impermanent world, who my father is, who my mother is. That's another reason why our discussion was also in that direction. Anyway, so let's conclude today's session together praying for world peace. Let us all chant the Shanti Mantra together 3 times. Praying to the Almighty that every being in the creation is happy, content and peaceful. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.